What up? We got Herman right now. Sorry, we've been dealing with a lot of Jared Goff fans, so we figure we're speaking their own language at this point, you know?
Hey, man, you guys are cracking me up. I'm sitting here, and you know, I will have to admit, you know, so I was sitting out here because I'm from the South, right? So,
Yeah.
and I know we got a little bit of twang in our voice, and we talk a little bit like that. And I tell you, that boy right now, he's a good fella, you know. And so you know, so we do a little bit back there, depending on which part that you grow in. I've adopted a little bit of the Midwest here and coming up to Michigan, so I've lost a little bit of my little Southern slang there. I mean, but it's all good. It had me cracking up, man. I said, what show did I just walk into, man?
Usually we're pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie. Usually it's like this. But we try. It's been stressful times, so we cope with humor, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you, man. But how's it going today, man? Everybody's good?
Doing good.
Doing good, man. Looking forward to this Broncos game, getting a little bit of bounce back. But I seen you pretty active on Twitter with some of your game notes. What were some of your takeaways from the Detroit Lions' loss to the Chicago Bears?
You know, when you get back down to it and you look at really where this team is and what they're trending towards, I mean, when I started looking at this, I would say at least 3-4 games back, and you could start to see that there were some habits that were creeping in that was taking a step back in terms of where they've grown towards. And a lot of that was just the discipline. It was really being sound in their assignments. We didn't see a lot of the penalties. We didn't see a lot of the turnovers that were happening. And then when you start to see that there was just a lot of these penalties that are taking place, and that's when you talk about being a disciplined team. And when Coach Dan Campbell talks about the things that frustrate him or things that is making him have to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more firmer on this team, it's because of that, because it hasn't existed. And you're in the most critical part of the season where teams are supposed to get better. The discipline is supposed to be sharper. The focus is supposed to be better. And for them, they're trending in the opposite direction. And to be sitting atop in the NFC North and to have such a commanding presence, you don't want to have that all of a sudden start to slide back. This isn't one of those deals where you can just, you know, turn it on and turn it off when you want to. This team isn't capable right now of that. They don't have the longevity or the consistency over time to be able to recover that quickly. But some things will have to change very quickly coming into this game against Denver.
And I do want to ask you, because characteristic.
Get it out your mouth,
Characteristic.
Characteristically, we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown drop a couple balls. Didn't have his best game out there against the Chicago Bears. You know, take us into the mind of a star receiver, and when you need to bounce back from a game like that, what's going through your mind the week coming up to this matchup against the Broncos?
You know, St. Brown has been just such a steady, reliable, dependable player that it's glaring whenever he does have a miscue or if he does miss a football. But I'm not even concerned about him. He's consistent. He has really good hands. We all, as you know, no matter how great you are as a receiver or how talented you are, you're going to have some games that you have to bounce back from. And this is going to be one of those games for him. He's not as targeted. He was definitely a player that Chicago wanted to make sure that you beat us with anyone in the receiving game but him and also Laporta. And that's where it's going to test the innovation of your offensive coordinator. It's going to test your ability to go out and get other players to step up. But then also, if you look at, and I'm not going away from St. Brown just yet, but, you know, they were having some effective offensive plays and just running the football. It was testing to see, will they continue to stay that, or will they force themselves back into doing something they didn't need to do? And that was convert to the passing game, which cost them some opportunities. But when you look at St. Brown, he's going to be one that bounces back. They need him to be highly productive. They need him to be an integral part of this offense. And I think that's also a source of confidence. Goff, every quarterback has a receiver or two that they depend on in times of trouble, in times of need, when they need to dial up those critical plays. And when you don't have that and you see that there's a struggle that's happening with your number one wide receiver, that can shake your quarterback just slightly.
Now, I actually have a question to change like the quarterback question. It's kind of it's a really simple, basic football question. I am curious. You were paid millions of dollars to catch the football. What? Because sometimes that ball leaves Goff's hands. It's kind of fluttery. You know, it's quacking out there. What is the difference, and why is there the emphasis on the spiral? Because Goff, he does get the job done still at times with the ball like that. Is that make it any harder to catch? Like, I guess what is the difference between like having a quarterback who's throwing those two as a wide receiver as opposed to like a spiral?
Well, it makes all the difference. If you're a receiver, you're caught to catch the point of the football, which means it needs to come like this, if it's coming all over the place and moving around and shaking and all that stuff when they're throwing it to you, it's going to create issues. So you can't focus on catching the football when it's coming to you kind of end over end, or if it's coming at you in a different way that it's thrown at you that way. So I think for any receiver, you're always looking to say, how do I just become a target? You just want the football thrown to you. If it's thrown to you, your job is to catch the football regardless of how it gets there. And when you start focusing on the perfect pass, you start opening yourself up to inconsistencies as a wide receiver. I just say, what it is. When it gets there, my job is to make the catch, whether it's a high pass, a low pass, whether I'm slipping and falling. It doesn't matter. That's your job.
Yeah, with that recent performance of Goff and balls kind of coming out like that, and knowing they drafted Hendon Hooker, what are your expectations for the future with him? Do you think Detroit Lions are going to give him a big deal come off season?
I think they will. You got to keep him. He's a big part of your passing attack. There's an opportunity to potentially do some upgrades in different areas. I really think that right now it's just maximizing the talent that they have. I think you go ahead and keep this team where it is. I think this team is put together well enough to be competitive in its division, two, competitive in its conference, and be playoff bound if they can get off to strong starts. Now, I think the argument can be made that they're coming into a tougher part of their season. Everyone looked at the teams that they are facing near this down part of the stretch right here, the last 4 games, as being easy games, but those teams are starting to pick up the pace. And because of that, it's made it a little bit more difficult to predict where this team may end up. But, going back to the players, I don't necessarily think I leave the door open for me to start to lose some of the pieces that I've worked so hard as an organization to put in place over the years to now have that all of a sudden become an uncertainty.
And we look at the game plan going into the Chicago game and how it was executed. A lot of fans think they abandoned the run a little too early in that game. They stopped. David Montgomery didn't get much run in that second half at all, and they're starting to drop back to throw it more. Do you agree with that? Would you like to see them focus on that run a little bit more against the Denver Broncos?
I did. I would like to see them do that. Chicago, I think that's where, if I had to point to one thing and say a big missed opportunity, it was to really just force feed the Bears defense, the running game. They didn't do anything, in my opinion, to stop them. They had some stops here and there, but they weren't consistent at shutting down the Lions running game. And that was the most effective thing that they were doing. And it was low risk than what we saw in the passing game that just didn't seem to have the effectiveness. So there needs to be a shift happen quicker. And coming into the Denver game, it's going to be predictable. Denver knows that they're going to want to come out and try and run the football. So I think they're going to be prepared for that. But I think they also are going to say, hey, there's an effective piece here in doing certain things to certain players in the passing game that shakes the confidence of the quarterback, or it creates an issue where the offensive coordinator now is going to have to really dial up some plays with other players to try and loosen up this defense, because I just think they're going to be prepared. They're going to be prepared to stop the run. They're going to be prepared to stop a couple players inside of the passing attack, and they're going to force them to get creative offensively, defensively, and also to figure out ways in which to get other players involved.
Speaking of defense, what do you make of the Detroit Lions defense as of late? I know some people on the side it takes a little bit of personnel. Some people think it's a little bit more of a mix. I think a little bit has to do with the turnovers too, putting like a lot of bad situations. I mean, 3 and outs and short fields. Your defense is never going to look great in those scenarios. What did you make of AG and this Detroit Lions defense as of recently?
Well, the biggest concern I have with this defense is as we start to see offenses bring along, covet the scrambling quarterback, the one that has the effectiveness to move out of the pocket. It's not about the big name guys. It's about who has escapability, who has the ability to put pressure on the defense to make sure that if they overcommit on the blitz or the pass rush on the outside and they're soft in other areas and leave lanes, they get exposed with a quarterback that can run. If they are a defense that sits back on their heels and there's passing attack, they have vulnerability in the secondary because guys just can't cover people for long extended periods of time. That's why you look at this big stat on which quarterbacks have most time in the pocket are typically going to be the guys that are going to be most successful. There are these other pieces that I think this defense, if you look at and you peel back, forget about how many yards they're giving up a game, how many takeaways they're getting. I'm looking at, pressure on quarterbacks. How often are they able to go ahead and dial up the defense so where they're unpredictable and they're creating chaos for the offense to have to adjust? Those are things that are going to tell you some of the more effective ways in which a defense is dictating or are able to change the output of a game. But right now, I am concerned about their ability to play man. I'm concerned about their ability against quarterbacks who have maneuverability and they have the ability to get outside of the pocket and recreate and reestablish or run. I think that's going to be problematic for this defense going through, especially you look at the teams they may face if the postseason is here for them to be in.
And finally, kind of a hot button topic with fans, with the network. Different people have different opinions, but Jameson Williams, again, one touch in this game, only targeted one time in this game. I think it's a sin that they're not getting this kid the ball as much as possible. Do you think it is a trust thing? Do you think part of it is Goff's inability to hit those deep balls, hit him in stride? Because he beat two players by 4 yards, and the ball ends up 6 yards behind him on the one target he did get. What do you think is the situation going on there?
This is a conundrum. This is something that I'm struggling with, just as everyone else. And I think the Lions may want to take a deep look at it from the offensive side and say, listen, why is it we can't get this player, a high draft pick, a player who definitely I know he has the ability, he has skill, but we're only allowing him to touch the ball so many times. I just don't see him being double teamed. I just don't see him being covered in such a way to where it's impossible for him to have 4, 5, 6 touches a game easily, or at least attempts. Anyone wants to challenge any of us on that, I think we can challenge that, but I just don't think that's hard. I don't think that's hard to do. I think they need to dial it up. Too often, sometimes it's a player being put into a system where they have to run a route that's part of a package versus figuring out how do we also put packages in that allow us to take advantage of the ability that a player has. And sometimes that gets kind of lost and becomes kind of a touchy situation when it comes to, the play callers and also how do you adjust so that you can bring a player into the fold.
It drives me crazy because obviously 12th overall pick. But on top of that, this guy, literally the league changed rules in the suspension to get him in the game earlier. And I just feel like we haven't game played anything for him because he was part of the installments in the offseason or what it is. But
never had a game in his career with more than 2 touches.
It's annoying.
Yeah, and he's not being double and triple, double or triple covered. And they're not making these special packages that I'm seeing from the film that I'm watching, the wide angle as well as the studio version, to where you just go, it's impossible to get him the football. I just don't see that.
Now, Herman, I was talking with Chrissy a little bit earlier, and I remember watching the Bye Bye Barry thing. You got that ball from Barry after he broke the record. But I understand you're selling some memorabilia on the site. You got some of the more merch and other stuff you're selling?
Oh, yeah. So I've started to put together, I've gone in. I'm actually going to have my mom join me on some of the shows. She brought me a treasure trove of things that she's kept over the years. I'm not going to keep all of it. Some of it I'd love to be able to share with some of the fans. Very unique, very, very, very cool stuff. So I want to do something a little bit different than what people have done in the memorabilia market and give fans a part of like the history of the player, part of the game, things that are just unique, one-of-a-kind items, and share those in limited edition. So I'm looking to do that, and also it helps me raise money for my foundation, also for the entrepreneurship programs that I do. But also I know my Mama Moore is going to feel good about it, so I'll let her tell some of the stories when she's on there.
That's awesome. You got any because you played basketball too, didn't you?
I did. So I have stuff like from Foot Locker and Slam Fest from my high school days when I played basketball. But even like the letters that Lions gave me, the very first letter I ever received to them as a case in point, I have. It's in absolute perfect condition, has my University of Virginia dorm information on it, and it's signed by Wayne Font. So put those out in limited editions, make that part of my legacy, put that out with some cards and stuff like that, welcoming me to the Lions, and just really, really cool stuff. Screen Actor Guild checks I never cashed with Jerry Maguire You know,
What?
it's just
That
really,
is
it's
so
some really,
sick.
really cool
What?
stuff,
That's
man.
crazy.
That makes it a little different, man, than just
Yeah.
saying, okay, I got this rinse and repeat photo that 1,000 people, 5,000 people have. I'm gonna give you something pretty special.
How good was
so
Herman
sick.
Moore at basketball?
Oh, Slam Fest, $50,000, Phoenix Center. Hey, I'm taking them all down from Olympians to some of the guys in the NFL that they didn't know my name then, but they knew it when I left because I walked away with the 50 G's and the big hardware and the highlight tapes and all that stuff. But no, man, I held my own. If you don't know about me, you better ask somebody.
Better ask somebody. I'm telling you.
That's right. That's right.
Herman, I appreciate you joining us. Make sure you guys give Herman a follow. It's hermanlow.com. If you want to purchase some of those signed memorabilia on top of the blankets, on top of the shirts. I gotta get a hat too, man.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna introduce you guys to my Catchman collection too. That's gonna be some really cool stuff. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Always, man, I appreciate the love, allowing me to come on, also sharing that across our nation. But yeah, keep doing your thing. And I tell you, boys, I'll be back on this show one of these times.
Appreciate you, Herman. Y'all
Thank
come
you so
back
much,
now.
Herman. Y'all come back now.
Yeah, just make sure I keep turning it to the left.
Appreciate you, Herman.
Appreciate you, Herman.
All right. Appreciate you, fellas.
What a legend, man.
He's a legend.
Absolute legend.